ሰላም እንዴት ናችሁ? ሰላም ናችሁ? ሄሎ everybody. Hello, how are you? እንዴት ናችሁ? ሰላም ናችሁ? Hello, how are you? How are you? How are you? Hello. Thanks. Don't forget to make a like. Thank you very much. I really miss all my friends. Last 3 days I was holiday because of a New Year. Ethiopian New Year is different. And different calendar, different date and timetable. So last Friday was a New Year. That's why I was in holiday. I was off. Today I came back to say hi to all of my lovely friends. How are you? Today I have a topic to say about why we have a different calendar and which calendar is true. Do you believe the world calendar is correct or my country calendar is correct? And in my side, I said my calendar is correct because I say it looks like correct and the world calendar is the same and a lot of countries use it, but still I believe that's wrong because my country calendar count by Bible and I feel the Ethiopian calendar is correct. So, what did you say? Hi, my friend. Everyone, welcome. And today my topic is about the Ethiopian calendar. And all of the world calendar is the same, but Ethiopian calendar is different. Is why? Why is different? Why? We count differently the day and the time, in the morning now. Now I'm living in the UK, right now I'm living in the UK. Now time in the morning and we call it, when we start in the morning, we call it, hello, hi, I'm a friend. Hi, I'm good, thanks to God. As last 3 days I was holiday because of a new year, because of Ethiopian New Year. It's different. Ethiopian New Year is different from all of the world calendar because we have different calendar, different timetable, and it's different from all of the world. We have a different alphabet too, because all of the world Arabic, English, and blah blah. But in my country, we are calling Amharic, and we spell it differently from the world. So it's a big celebrate day and Friday. That's why I was on holiday. I say Happy New Year to myself and to all of my people and my friends. Happy New Year. In Ethiopian New Year have something new in the world. So the day of the New Year, we pray together to bring a peace to all of the world. And one day we hope the peace is coming to all of the world. እንዴት ናችሁልኝ? ሰላም ናችሁልኝ? መላው ጓደኞቼ እንደሚታወቀው አርብ የኢትዮጵያን ኒው ይር ነበረ። ኒው ይር ደግሞ ኢትዮጵያ ኒው ይር ደግሞ እኔ ከዓለም ልክ ነው ብዬ አስባለሁ። እናንተስ ነው ጥያቄው? ምን ታስባላችሁ? የትኛው ካላንደር ነው ትክክል ብላችሁ የምታስቡ? ለሚ ነው። ወዳችኋለሁ፣ ናፍቂያችኋለሁ፣ ሚስ አድርጊያችኋለሁ እና እንዴት ናችሁልኝ? ተጫወቱልኝ። እስቲ ከኒው ይር ጨዋታዎች እንቆጣጣሽ የሚለው በጣም እንቁጣጣሽ እንኳን መጣሽ በአበቦች መሃል እኔም ነሽ። I like this song. እንቁጣጣሽ አበባ እንኳን መጣሽ አበባ በአበቦች መሃል አበባ እኔም በሽበሽ አበባ. Don't forget, like, and share it, because now I'm trying to open about something in English about the Ethiopian calendar. Good. Not the one. Wait me, my friend. And I have a message to the new YouTuber. If you need to get view, watching time quickly, and subscribe, we must be a group, and we need more than 35 people maximum. So if you are happy, after I finish, I will put the number of the group manager. Then short period of a time, we get 40,000 times. So be with this group. It's good. And we see two of our friend immediately they are success. That's why we are following the rule when you enter. ሰላም ኢትዮ ሰላም ነው። ሰላም እህትዬ እንዴት ነሽልኝ? እስካሁን ድረስ የነበሩት ጓደኞቼ አማርኛ አይችሉም ነበርና ለዛ ነበረ በምችለው ስንደፋደፍ የነበረው። እንዴት ነሽልኝ? ሰላም ናችሁ ወይ? እንዴት ነሽ? በአጭር ጊዜ ውስጥ ሰዓታችንን እንዴት እንደምንሞላ የሚያሳይ ወይም ደግሞ የተጀመረ ግሩፕ አለ። 40 ብንሆን ተመራጭ ስለሆነ ሳይሞላ ሁላችሁም ሆኑ። ትላንትና ነው መግለጫ ሰጥታ ነበረ በቻናል ላይ እህታችን። ስለዚህ ሁላችንም ያንን ግሩፕ ተቀላቅለን በአጭር ጊዜ ሰዓታችንን እንሙላ፣ በአጭር ጊዜ ሰብስክራይባችንን እንሙላ። ስለዚህ ይህን ግሩፕ ለመቀላቀል ሄለን ገኒ ስደተኛዋ የሚለውን የዩቱብ ገጽ ላይ ዲስክሪፕሽን ላይ ታገኙታላችሁ ስልኳን። ያንን ስልክ ጽፋችሁ ሊንካችሁን በመላክ ስማችሁንም ከሊት ነኝ በላችሁ በመላክ ሰዓትን ወጥቶ የሰዓት ላይ ስንት ሰዓት ማጫወት እንዳለባችሁ አውቃችሁ እንድትቀላቀሉ። ከማን ጋር ነው ከማን ጋር ነው ልልሽ ነበር ያልሽ ማማዬ? ከማን ጋር ነው ልልሽ ነበር። ምኑን ነው ከማን ጋር ነው የምትማር? ወይም ምኑን ነው ከማን ጋር ነው ነው ልልሽ ነበር። ኦልራይት ሳውራ የነበረው ከጓደኞቼ ጋር የምታያቸው ከአንቺ በፊት የነበሩት 5ቱም አማርኛ አይናገሩም ነበር። ለዛ ነው ኤክስፕሌን ማድረግላቸው ስለ ኒው ይር ነው፣ እንዴት ዲፈረንት የሆነ ካላንደር እንዳለን ካለም ቀን አቆጣጠራችን እንዴት ልዩ እንደሆነ የራሳችን ደግሞ የፊደላት እንዳሉን የምችለውን ያህል አብራራ። እንደገና ደግሞ ከማብራራት አልፌ ደግሞ ስለዛ የምታወራ ትንሽ ነገር ልፈልግ ነው ማለት ነውና እንዴት ናችሁልኝ? ግን ባጭሩ እንዴት ናችሁ? ባያሌው ሰላም ናችሁልኛል? ሰላም እንደምትሆኑልኝ እርግጠኛ ነኝ። ኦኬ ያ የማወራው የነበረው ከጓደኞቼ ጋር ነው። ከጓደኞቼ ነበረው የገቡት። ለዛ ነው ለተወሰነ ቀናት ጠፍተን ነበረ። ሁላችንም በአዲስ ዓመት የተነሳ አዲስ ዓመት እንኳን ለአዲስ ዓመት አደረሳችሁ። መጀመሪያ ደረጃ አዲስ መንፈስ፣ አዲስ ስራ፣ አዲስ አስተሳሰብ፣ አዲስ አመለካከት እንዲኖረን ሁላችንም እግዚአብሔር አምላክ ያድለን። አዲስ ሰላም፣ አዲስ ፍቅር፣ አዲስ ማንነት ለሁላችንም ይስጠን። ዘመናትና ጊዜያት ያጠፉትም ሆነ ያበላሹት ነገር ስለሌለ ዘመናችን አዲስ ይሆን ዘንድ እግዚአብሔር አምላክ ያድለን። ላለው ወዳችኋለሁ፣ አክብራችኋለሁ። ይቺ ነገር አብረን እንድናዳምጥ ልጋብዛችሁ ወደድኩኝ። እስቲ ከሰራልኝ ነው እስከዛ ድረስ አውሩ እና አዲሱን ግሩፕ እንዴት አየሽ? እሺ ብዙ ጊዜ ለምን ብዙ ጊዜ አልመጣም አንቺ ጋር ስገባ አንደኛ ዋው አምላኬ ደስ ይላል። ባለሳሳት ዳዊት ዮርዲ ዩቲዩበር አይደለሽ ወይም አይደለ? ስለዚህ ዩቲዩበር ከሆንክ በአጭር ሰዓት ሰብስክራይባችን የሚያድግበትና ሰዓታችን የሚጨምርበትን ሀሳብ ተስማምታሽ ወይም ተስማምታ ሴት ወንድ ሶሪ መቀጠል የምትፈልጉ ከሆነ ገኒ ሄለን ገኒ ስደተኛዋ የሚለው ዩቲዩብ ዲስክሪፕሽን ላይ ያለውን ቁጥር ሁላችንም መዝግበን በዛ መሰረት ተገናኝተን በአጭር ጊዜ ሰዓታችን እንሞላለን። ለዚህ ደግሞ ሰክሰስ የሆኑ አንድ የራሴ ቻናል ሰክሰስ ሆኗል። ሌሎችም ልጆች ስላሉ በዚህ ሀሳብ የምትስማሙ ከሆነ አታጋጥሚኝም ዋይ እንትኑን ሰብስክራይብ አድርገሽ ወይም አድርገህ ደውሉን ከተጫንከው ኤቭሪ ታይም ወን ኦንላይን ስገባ መምጣት ነበረበት። ሰላም እናት ሀገሬ ወንድሜ እንዴት ነህ ያለኝ ሰላም ነው ሆይ? እንኳን ወደዚህ ሀሳብና ወደዚህ ቻናል በሰላም መጣ። ስናወራ የነበረውን እደግመዋለሁ ለጓደኞቻችን። ያው በሌላ ቋንቋ ስናወራ የነበረው አማርኛ ቋንቋ ስለማይሰሙ ነበረ። አሁን ደግሞ እኛ አለ በግልጽ ቋንቋ የጠፋንበት ምክንያት አዲሱ ዓመት ስለነበረ እና አዲሱ ዓመት እና የኛ የካላንደር ልዩነት የሰዓት ልዩነት እና የራሳችን ቋንቋ ልዩነት የሚያመርና ካለም የተለየ ነው። የትኛውስ ነው ትክክል? የትኛው ትክክል ነው ብላችሁ ታስባላችሁ? የዓለም ካላንደር ነው ትክክል? የኛ ነው ብላችሁ ታስባላችሁ? እኔ እንደኔ የኛ ብዬ አስባለሁ እያልኩ ነበር ስናወራ የነበረው። ሌላውና አጭርና ግልጹ በአጭር ሰዓት ሰብስክራይባችን የምናሳድግበትና ሰዓታችንን በአጭር ጊዜ የምንሞላበት የራሳችን የሆነ አሰራር አለ። እኔ አንዱን ቻናሌን የስራ ቢሆንም ሞኔታይዝ እንዴት ነው የሆንኩት? እንዴት ነው በአጭር ጊዜ ሊሞላልኝ የቻለው? ከማጋ ነበርኩ ስሰራ የነበረው እንደው በግልጽ ማለት ነው። ሄለን ገኒ ስደተኛዋ የሚለው ዩቲዩብ ከሷ ስር ቁጥሩ ይጻፋል። ያንን ቁጥር ላይ አድርጋችሁ ቀድሞ አባል የሆነ ሰው እስከ 40 ሰው በወር ከምናምን ውስጥ ሞኔታይዝ መሆን ይችላል። ዜሮ እንኳን ቢሆን ሰዓቱ ከዜሮ ተነስቶ ግን ሩል አለው የማድረግ ያለብን እና እንደገና መቆጣጠሪያ ያለው አንድ ሰው ስንት ሰዓት አየ ስንት ሰዓት ሊወጣ ውጥት ግብት ለመደማመር ብሎ የሚወጣ የሆነ ነገር ገብቶ የሚወጣ ምናምን ከሆነ አንፈልግም። ምክንያቱም ቀጥታ ልክ በተመደበው ሰዓት ያ ሰው ያንንትን ማጫወት ነው ስራው ማለት ነው። ያለ ማድረግ ደግሞ አንድ ሰው ቢያንስ ብዙም ባይሆን 2 ወይ 3 አካውንቶች ቢኖሩት ፌክ ሳይሆን ሪል አካውንት ቢኖሩት ይመረጣል። ባይኖረውም አንድም ሁለትም ሪል አካውንት ካለው በዛ ባጫወተው ሰዓት ልክ የሱንም ገብተው እንዲያጫወቱለት ይደረጋል። ለዛ የምትስማሙ ካላችሁ ቀድሜ ነበር በዚህ ሀሳብ ላይ እንድንሰራ እየፈለግኩትኝ። አንደኛ በዓል መጣ፣ ሁለተኛው ሌላ ከኛ በታች የነበሩ 17 ልጆች ሞኔታይዝ መሆን ነበረባቸውና ከነሱ ጋር ስንሰራ ቆየን። ያንዷ ብቻ ነው የቀረው። ለዛ ነው ወደዚህኛው ዩቲዩብና ወደዚህኛው ጓደኞቼ ጋር እንዴት ነው ባጭር ጊዜ ዩቲዩባችንን ሰዓታችንንም ሰብስክራይባችንን ባጭር ጊዜ የምንሞላው የሚለውን ሀሳብ ይዘን የመጣ ነው። አይዲያው እንደሚወራም አይደለም። ምክንያቱም እኔም እኛም ከማውራት ይልቅ ወደ ተግባር የሚገባበት ነው። አዎ ባጭር ሰዓት ሰብስክራይቤም ሰዓቴም እንዲሞላ ፈልጋለሁ የምትሉ አሁንም ደግሜ እናገረዋለሁ። ገኒ ወይም ሄለን ገኒ ስደተኛዋ ገጽ ላይ ተቀምጦ ታገኙታላችሁ። በዛ ቁጥር መሰረት አሁን የመሆን ፈልጋለሁ የምትሉ ሰዎች እንድትገቡ። ለምን ልክ ያኛው ጋር ያየነውን አሰራር ባጭር ጊዜ 2 ወር ሳይሞላን አረባችን እንዴት ሞኔታይዝ ሆነን ያኛው ቻናላችን ላይ ስለዛኛው ቻናል እናወራለን። የስራ ስለሆነ ነው ወይም ደግሞ ጀስት የሚያገናኝን ፐርሰን ከነሱ ጋር ስለነበረ ነው። ይሄኛው ግን ከሁላችንም ጋር ከሀገራችን ልጆች ጋር የምንሰራበት የምንፈልገውን መልእክት የምናስተላልፍበት የምንሰራቸውን ምርቶች የምናስተዋውቅበት በአጠቃላይ ብዙ ዓላማ ያለው ቻናል ስለሆነ ለምለትና ወንድሞቻችን እዛ ጋር የተጠቀምነው ነገር እዚህ ጋር እንጠቀምበትን ብለን ይዘን መተናል። ባለፈው የተወሰኑ ልጆች መጥተው ነበር እንዴት ነው የምናረገው እናት እንዲህ ብናረግ ጀስት የሚደረገውን ነገር ለማወቅ ነው እንጂ ወደ ተግባር ለማድረግ ስላልሄዳችሁ የምናደርገውና የምናደርገውን ሳይሆን አንድና አንድ ግሩፕ መቀላቀል የምትፈልጉ ሰዎች አሁንም ደግሞ አለው ሄለን ገኒ ስደተኛዋ ዩቲዩብ ላይ የምታገኙት ቁጥር ላይ ስልካችሁንና ያው ሊንካችሁን ላኩ። አው ተስማምቻለሁ የምትሉ እንደገና ደግሞ በተለያየ ሰዓት እንዳንገባ አሁን ምንድን ነበረኛ ከነሱ ጋር ስንሰራ ያደርገ የነበረው በብዛት በነሱ ሰዓት ነበረ አብሬያቸው አጫውቴ የነበረውና ዛሬ ላይ ደግሞ እኛ መነጋገር ያለብን እንዲመቸን የትኛው ሰዓት ነው የሚመቸን እነማንን ለምሳሌ አርባዎቹ እነማንን ያለንበት ሰዓት ላይ የሚመቸን ነው ወይ ለመክፈት ባይመቸን እንኳን ምንም መቀመጥ አያስፈልገንም ከፍተን ቻርጅ ላይ አድርገን መተኛት ያለብንን በዩቲዩብም ኮፒራይት ያልሆነ የምንሰራቸው ነገሮች የምናጫውታቸው ሰዓትም አንዱ ያጫወተው ሰዓት ደቂቃ ስንት ደቂቃ እንዳጫወተ የሚያሳይ ራሱን የቻለ አፕ አለን። ያን እናደርጋለን። ስለዛ ጉዳይ ስንጀምር እናወራዋለን። መጀመሪያ 40 እንሙላላለው የዘና ባልነት ለማሟላት ደግሞ አለው ገኒ ወይም ሄለን ገኒ ስደተኛዋ ገጽ ላይ ያለውን ቁጥር በሚያስተመዝገቡ በተረፈ እንዴት ናችሁልኝ? ሰላም ናችሁ ወይ? እሺ ብዙ ጊዜ እሺ ሰላም እናት ሰላም ሴት ወይስ ወንድ? ዳዊት ዳዊት ወንድ እናትን አውቃለሁ። አንቺ ሰላም እናት ዳዊት እኔ ወንድም ሴትም ብዬ ነው የማወራው ጾታውን ስላላወቅኩኝ ውስጥ ብገባ አውቀዋለሁ ግን ኦልሬዲ አሁን በኮምፒውተሩ እንዳጋጣሚ በዚሁ ከፈትኩት ወደዚህ ማዞር ከቻልኩ ወደዚህ አዙሬ በስልኩ ሁላችሁንም አያችኋለሁ ማለት ነው። ምክንያቱም መቆጣጠሪያ ሰዓት አሁን መክፈት አያስፈልገኝም። ሁላችሁም ወዳችሁና ፈቅዳችሁ ነው ወደዚህ ቦታ የመጣችሁት። ስለዚህ ያኛውን አላማችንን ለመቀላቀል የምትፈልጉ ባልኳችሁ መሰረት አገኙን። በተነሳነው ርዕስ ላይ እንድንከራከር እፈልጋለሁ። የኢትዮጵያ ካላንደር ወይም አቆጣጠር ከዓለም አቆጣጠር ይለያል። የተለየበትም ምክንያት ምንድነው? የትኛውስ ነው ትክክል ብላችሁ ታምናላችሁ? እኔ እንደኔ የኢትዮጵያ ካላንደር አቆጣጠር ከዓለም ቢለይም ልክ ነው ብዬ አስባለሁ። እናንተስ? ሌላ ሀገራት የራሳቸው የሆነ ካላንደር አቆጣጠር አላቸው? ስንት ሀገራት እነማንን ታውቃላችሁ? እስቲ እየጻፋችሁልኝ እማናውቀውን አብረን እንድናውቅ ስለማላውቅ የጠየኳችሁ። የምታውቁት ነገር ካለ ደግሞ እናንተ እየነገራችሁ ማለት ነው። እስከዛ በጥቂቱም ቢሆን ይህንን ሀሳብ የሚያስረዳ ይሁን አይሁን ትንሽ ያዘጋጇት ነገር አለች። ዛሬ ላይ በዚህ ሀሳብ ላይ በተመሳሳይ ይችን ሀሳብ ብቻ እናወራለን። ልጆቻችን ወይም የምትመጡት አዲስ ልጆቻችን እዚህ የምንደማምረው ላይ ማነሳታችን የምናስቆጥረው ላይ ማለት ነው ይቅርታ እንድንታወቅ አንድ አይነት ሀሳብና አንድ አይነት እንትን ነው የምናቀርብላችሁ ከሄለን ገኒ እንደተኛው ጋር ያንን እንዳያችሁ ከስር አሁንም ደግሞ አለው እኔም ከስር እንደጨረስኩ ዲስክሪፕሽን ቦርዱ ላይ አስቀምጠዋለሁኝ ታገኙታላችሁ። የሄለን ገኒ ስደተኛዋን ገጽ ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ ሁላችሁም ሊንካችሁንና ስማችሁን አስቀምጣችሁ በፍጥነት 41 እንሞላ ላልሰሙ ልጆች ማለት ስፔሻሊ አንድ ሰው 10 ሰው ኦርጋናይዝድ አድርጎ እኛ 10 ነን ብሎ ቢመጣ 10 የራሱን ገጾች ሳይሆን የኡነት 10 ማደግ ያለባቸውን የዩቲዩብ ገጾች ለምን ሁላችንም ትርፍ አካውንት አለን ያው ኦር ምን ደማመርበት ኦር ደግሞ ምናጫውትበት ነው ያ ሳይሆን ቻናላችን እነዛን ሰዎች ሰብስቦ መምጣት የሚችል ሰው ቅድሚያ ማለት ነው። ምን አይነት ቅድሚያ ይሰጠዋል? አሁን ለምሳሌ ግሩፑ ላይ ካለምንም እጣ ካለምንም ቀድሞ 10ን ኦርጋናይዝ አድርጎ የመጣው እንደ አንድ ከነሱ በፊት ቀድሞ የሚጫወትለት የሱ ይሆናል ማለት ነው። እንዴት ብሎና ምን ብናጫወት ነው በአጭር ጊዜ የሚሞላው የትኛውን ስናጫወት ነው ሰዓታችን ሊሞላ ያልቻለው በዛው ሰዓት ላይ ነው የምንነጋገረው። ስለዚህ መጀመሪያ እኛ ይሄን ያልነን ወይም ይሄን ያል ብላችሁ ይዛችሁ የምትመጡ ሰዎች አሁንም ደግሞ አለው ሄለን ገኒ ስደተኛዋ ፔጅ ላይ እና አሁንም ይሄን እንደጨረስኩ ማስቀምጥላችሁ ቁጥር አለ የሷን ቁጥር እዛ ላይ ሁላችሁም አባል እንድትሆኑ ላለው ማለት ነው። እሺ ይሄንኛው ነበር መክፈት የፈለኩት። እስከዛ ኦኬ አልመጣም። ይሄ አይደለም ምን ሀሳብ አልሰጣችሁኝም። ሀሳብ የሰጣችሁ ቢሆን አም ሶ ሃፒ ደስተኛ ነኝ ማለት ነው። እሺ እርግጠኛ ነኝ ታያችኋል ብዬ አስባለሁ። እሺ በውስጥ ናችሁ የምታዩኝ ነው ማየት እችላለሁ። ከዚህ ውስጥ አሁን ዩቲዩብ ሳይሆኑ የሚያዩን ሰዎች አሉ። ዩቲዩብ ሳይሆኑ ሰብስክራይብ ያደርጉናሉ። ለኛ እገዛ በማድረግ አብራችሁ ናችሁ። በጣም ነው የማመሰግነው። ማለት በብዛት እዚህ ጋር የማያችሁ በሙሉ የአዲሱ የዚህኛው አሁንም የማገኝበት ቻናል ጓደኞቼ ናቸው። እስቲ ሜሴጅ እያነበብኩ ይመቸኛል። እሺ እናንተ ሼር አድርጉ እስቲ። እኔ ይሄን ማላችሁ ማለት ነው። አሁን የኔ ሞኔታይዝ የሆነውን ቻናሌን በዛው እዚህ ላይ ካለ አሳያችኋለሁና የነሱ ጓደኞች ፈጽሞ እዚህኛው ላይ ሊቀላቀሉ አልፈልግም። ለምን ከሀሳቡ ጋርም ከዓላማው ጋር ማይገናኝም። ጀስት ያኛው የስራ የነበረ ግሩፕ ነው። ልምድ ነው የቀሰምኩበት። እንዴት ነው በአጭር ጊዜ ውስጥ ሰዓታችን የሞላ ነው የሚለውን ነው ወደዚህ ለማካፈል የመጣሁትኝና እነሱን ወደዚህ ማድረጉን አይደለም። ይታያችኋል እየቀየርኩት ነው ካሉ ማለት ነው። እርግጠኛ ነኝ እየታያችሁ አይደለም እንጂ በጎን በኩል አሉ በብዛት። ይሄ እናንተ ሼር አድርጉት እስቲ። እናንተ ሼር አድርጉትና እናንተ የሰው ቢጠቀም ብትሉ። ምክንያቱም እኔ ይገርማችኋል ይሄኛውን ለያኛውን ዩቲዩብን ስጀምር ጀስት እንደ መደማመሪያ ብዬ ከፈትኩት ነበርና ሳላስበው ነው ይሄኛው ያደገው። በዛው ቀጠልኩና ለምን ይሄኛውንስ እንዲከደረሰ ሞኔታይዝ እንዲሆን አልሰራም ብዬ ነው እንጂ ለዛኛው ለዛኛው ማጫወቻ የነበረ ማለት ነው። ሞኔታይዝ ለሆነው ቻናል ለስራና ለአንድ ድርጅት ዓላማ የተሰራ ቢሆንም ያው አሁን ላይ ያሉ ስራዎችን ታያላችሁ። ግን የተማርንበትን በአጭር ጊዜ እንዴት ሰዓታችን ያስቆጠርንበትን አሰራር ነው ወደዚህ ላመጣ የፈለኩት። ጓደኞቻችን አብረው ቢሰሩ የምትሉ ካላችሁ ለጓደኞቻችሁ ሼር በማድረግ እናንተ ብዙ ሰዎችን ወደዚህ ድል ብትጋብዙ ደስ ይለኛል ማለት ነው እንጂ እኔ ይሄኛው ቢሆንም ባይሆንም ኦልሬዲ የሆነ ቻናል ስላለኝ ብዙም እንትን አይለኝም። ምክንያቱም ማውራት የምችለውን እንደዚህ በአሁኑ አፕ ገብተን ማውራት እንችላለን። ሀሳቤን መግለጽ ከሆነ ለምን ለቻናሉ ከሆነ ያኛው በቂ ነው ብዬ ስለማስብ ለስራም ነው ሞኔታይዝም ሆኗል። ግን ብዙ መድከም አልፈልግም። ተማሪም ነኝ፣ ሰዓትም ጊዜም የለኝም። ግን ባለኝ ሰዓት ላይ ይሄኛውንም የእናንተንም ለመሙላት ብዙን ኃላፊነት ወስዳ የምትሰራው ላድናት ተማሪያምና ሌሎች አሉ። ለመግለጽ ስላለብኝ አሁን የገለጽኩት። ሼር እያደረጋችሁ የዚህ አባል ብትሆኑ 2 ወር ባልሞላው ጊዜ ውስጥ 40 ሰዎች ሞኔታይዝ መሆን እንችላለን። ይሄ በትክክል የሚሆን ያልተሞከረ ሳይሆን የሆነና የሚሆነውን ሀሳብ ነው። እንዴት ለሚለው አብረን ነው ሰርተን የምናየው። እናንተም ደግሞ ያንን ለማድረግ ወስናችሁ ለጓደኞቻችሁ ሼር አድርጋችሁ ጓደኞቻችሁን ብትጠሯቸው በጣም አሪፍ ነው ብዬ አስባለሁ ማለት ነው። እንደምትወዱት እንደወዳችሁት ሀሳቡን በእርግጠኝነት እርግጠኛ ነኝ ማለት ነው። እና ደግመን ደግሞ ስተቶችን ባንሰራ ማለት ብዙ ጊዜ እስከዛሬ ሁላችንም አባል ለመሆን አንዱ ጋር ስንሄድ የምንጠቀማቸው ቃላቶች አሉ እነሱም በየጊዜው ይለምዳቸውና ትራንስሌት ተደርገው ለናንተም አሁን ለተደማሪውም አጉል የሆኑ ቃላቶች አሉና እነዛን ሜሴጅ ላይ ዩዝ ባታረጉ በጣም ብታዩት ውስጥ ገብታችሁ በጣም ብዙ ነው የሚቀንስባችሁ ወደ 200 300 እንትን ይቀንስባችኋል ያ ደግሞ የሚሆንበት ምክንያት ከምንጽፋቸው ነገር ነው ጀስት ቪዲዮን ብናደንቅ የምናየው ቪዲዮ ለምሳሌ ስለ ምግብ ከሆነ ያን ምግብ ማድነቅ እንዳለብን እንደገና ላይኩንም ሰብስክራይቡን በእጃችን አለመንካት መጀመሪያ ቀጥታ ቪዲዮን ማየት ለምን ቪዲዮን እንዳየን ላይክ እናረጋለን ስንጨርስ ሰብስክራይብ እናረጋለን ወይም ደግሞ አንድ ረጅም ቪዲዮ ሊሆን ስለሚችል ማክሲመም ከ3 ከ4 በላይ አርጋችሁ ብታደርጉ ጥሩ ነው ላለው ምክንያቱም በጣም ብዙ የተቀነሰባቸውና እጅግ በጣም ሰርተው ብዙ እንትን የደረሰባቸው እህቶችና ወንድሞቻችን ስላሉ ነው ይሄንን በእኛ ላይም እንዳይደርስ ምነግራችሁ ማለት ነው ሼር አድርጉና እናንተ ሰዎች እንዲገቡ አድርገን በአጭር ጊዜ ውስጥ ሰዓቱንም አሰራሩንም ተጀምሮ ለውጡን ይዩት በትክክል እንደዚህ ማለት ነው ካው እንደማንኛውም እዚህ ጋር እንደማሳያችሁ ሲጀመር የነበረውን ሰዓት ታያላችሁ የመጀመሪያ ቀን ካጫወታችሁ በኋላ የመጣውን ሰዓት ታያላችሁ እንዴት ለሚለው ለታርጌ ላሳያችሁ መሰላችሁ ቆይ ወደዛ ስለሆነ ነው ለእናንተ ያልታያ አሁን ለምሳሌ ከእናንተ ጋር መገናኝበት ቻናል ይሄ ነው አይደለ ይሄ ማለት ነው ይሄ ነው አሁን እየሰራ ስለሆነ ነው ቀጥታ መግባት ያልቻልኩት ማለት ነው የሌላውን ልክ ሲጀመር ለምሳሌ የምናጫውት የሌላ ሰው ቢሆን እንደዚህ ያሳየዋችሁ ነው የምታዩት ሲጀመር ስንት ሰዓት ነበረው ሲጀመር ስንት ሰብስክራይብ ነበረው በአንድ ቀን ውስጥ ስንት ሰዓት አስቆጠረ በአንድ ቀን ውስጥ ስንት ሰብስክራይብ አገኘ ወደኛ ወደዚህ አባል ኮነ በኋላ የሚለው እንደዚህ ላይቭ እያሳየን ነው የምንጀምረው ማለት ነው ስለዚህ በፍጥነት አባል ሆናችሁ ይሄንን ነገር አብራችሁ ቻናላችሁ እንድታሳድጉ በአጭር ጊዜ የምትፈልጉት ነገር እንድታገኙ እመክራችኋለሁ ይሄ ደግሞ ምክር ነው ምክንያቱም የወደደ ብቻ የሚያደርገው ስለሆነ ማለት ነው እንዲላ ሳያቸው ለምሳሌ እነዚህ አሁን ያልኳችሁን ለመሞከር ማለት ነው ምን ያህል ጉዳት እንዳለው ይሄ አሁን ምን ተጻጻፈውን ነገር ለመሞከር በሁለታችንም ቻናል ላይ ትናንትና ሞክረናው ነበር እንደዚህ እንሆን የሚሉ ቃላቶችን ይገርማችኋል 16 ሰብስክራይብ ነው ያነሳውና ሙከራው የተባልነው እውነት ስለሆነ አባካችሁ በመተጻጻፉ ሰዓት ላይ ቪዲዮን ሳታደንቁ ስለ ቪዲዮ ሳትረዱ ሳታዩ እንደገና እንዲያርገኝ ሌላ ለየት ያለ ቃላት መጠቀም ስትችሉ እየጠበቅኩ ነው እንደዚህ አርቃት ተባባሉ አሁን ቃላቱ ማለት መደማመሩ እንዲያርጉ መባሉን ተታችሁ በሌላ ቋንቋ ማለት ነው ቤተሰቦኛለሁ ኦኬ ግን ለምዶታል አሁንም ብዙ የሚለመዱ ነገሮችን ራሱ ያሳያችኋል ነው እንትን ብሎ ሲመልስባችሁ ማለት ነው ቪዲዮን እንደወደዳችሁት ያያችሁትን ቪዲዮ በዚሁ ቀጥል ይሄን ቪዲዮ እኔ ጋምናና ስራዎቼን አይተሽ አድንቀሽ ይሄን አስተያየት ስጪ በቃ ይሄን ከተባባልን በቂ ነው የሌላ ውስጡ መገላለጽ አያስፈልገውም በቃ አሁን ለምሳሌ አንድ ስለምግብ የሚያቀርበ ልጅ ዋው ያሚ ዲሊሺየስ በጣም ነው የሚጣፍጠው ደስ ይላል ቀምሻለሁ እስቲ እኔም ቤት ደግሞ ምግብ ሳይሆን የሰራውን አይነት ስራ ይጠቅስና እንዲህ አይነት ነገር ስላለ መተሽ ኢና እንደዚህ አይነት አስተያየቶችን ስጡኝ በቃ ይሄ ስፓ አይደለም የሚቀንሰውም ነገር የለም መደማመራችን ላይ ቢያንስ ግን አንድ ሰው የቪዲዮን ሐሳብ ከ3 ደቂቃ በላይ ሳያይ ሰውን ባይደምርም ላይክ ባያረክም ጥሩ ነው ምክንያቱም ላደረገውም ሰው አይጠቅም ለራሱም አይጠቅም የሚቀንስበታል እቺ ምክሬን አስተላልፋለሁ አመሰግናለሁ እርግጠኛ ነኝ ሁላችሁም ቀንሶባችሁ ምን ሆነ ነው የቆነሰብኝ ብላችኋል ይሄ ነው አውና ትንሽ ነው የምቆየው ትምህርት ቤት ስለምሄድ ብዙ ሳይሆን ትንሽ ቆያለሁና አንድ ቢያንስ 1-2 ሰዓት ከዚህ በኋላ ብቆይና አለው ሼር አድርጊና ሼር አድርግና ሰዎችን አምጡ እላለሁ 40 ማንሞላ ከሆነ ግን በግልጽ የተወሰኑ ልጆች መሆን ቀድሞ የላኩት ጋር እንዴት ባጭር ካለ ሰው እንዴት አድርገን እንደምንሰራ ያለው እንነጋገራለን ስለዚህ እንጠብቃለን በሄለን ገኒ ስደተኛዋ ተጽፎም ታገኙትን ቁጥር ተጫኑት ማለት ነው ቆይ ላሳያችሁ ነው ኦኬ በዚህ ወደ ዳር በኩል ያለው ስለማይታያችሁ ችግር የለም libraries እና ምን አላችሁ እስቲ ጻፉልኝ ቺል ከፍትላችሁ ነው እሺ ያዳመጣችሁ ሙለሳብዬ ነበር አይሞላም just
Listen, officially the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. Ethiopia Federalawi Demokrasiawi Republic listen, is a country in the northeastern part of Africa, popularly known as the Horn of Africa. It shares borders with Eritrea to the north, Djibouti to the northeast, Somalia to the east, Sudan and South Sudan to the west, and Kenya to the south. With over 102 million inhabitants, Ethiopia is the most populous landlocked country in the world and the second most populous nation on the African continent. It occupies a total area of 1,100,000 square kilometers, 420,000 square miles, and its capital and largest city is Addis Ababa. Some of the oldest skeletal evidence for any publicly modern humans has been found in Ethiopia. It is widely considered as the region from which modern humans first set out for the Middle East and places beyond. According to linguists, the first Afroasiatic-speaking populations settled in the Horn region during the ensuing Neolithic era. Tracing its roots to the 2nd millennium BC, Ethiopia's governmental system was a monarchy for most of its history. In the 1st centuries AD, the Kingdom of Aksum maintained a unified civilization in the region, followed by the Ethiopian Empire circa 1137. During the late 19th century scramble for Africa, Ethiopia was one of 2 nations to retain its sovereignty from long-term colonialism by a European colonial power. Many newly independent nations on the continent subsequently adopted its flag colors. The country was occupied by Italy in 1936 and became Italian Ethiopia, part of the Italian East Africa, until 1941. Ethiopia was also the first independent member from Africa of the 20th Century League of Nations and the United Nations. In 1974, the Ethiopian monarchy under Haile Selassie was overthrown by the Derg, a communist military government backed by the Soviet Union. In 1987, the Derg established the People's Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, but it was overthrown in 1991 by the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, which has been the ruling political coalition since. Ethiopia and Eritrea use the ancient Ge'ez script, which is one of the oldest alphabets still in use in the world. The Ethiopian calendar, which is approximately 7 years and 3 months behind the Gregorian calendar, coexists alongside the Boronic calendar. A majority of the population adheres to Christianity, mainly the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church in Panti, whereas around a third follows Islam, primarily Sunni. The country is the site of the migration to Abyssinia and the oldest Muslim settlement in Africa at Nagash. A substantial population of Ethiopian Jews, known as Bet Israel, also resided in Ethiopia until the 1980s. Ethiopia is a multilingual nation with around 80 ethnolinguistic groups, the 4 largest of which are the Oromo, Amhara, Somali and Tigrayans. Most people in the country speak Afroasiatic languages of the Cushitic or Semitic branches. Additionally, Omotic languages are spoken by ethnic minority groups inhabiting the southern regions. Nilo-Saharan languages are also spoken by the nation's Nilotic ethnic minorities. The nation is a land of natural contrasts, with its vast fertile west, its forests, and numerous rivers, and the world's hottest settlement of Dalal in its north. The Ethiopian highlands are the largest continuous mountain ranges in Africa, and the Saf Omar Caves contains the largest cave on the continent. Ethiopia also has the most UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Africa. Additionally, the sovereign state is a founding member of the UN, the Group of 24, G24, the Non-Aligned Movement, G77, and the Organization of African Unity. Its capital city Addis Ababa serves as the headquarters of the African Union, the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, the African Standby Force, and many of the global NGOs focused on Africa. In the 1970s and 1980s, Ethiopia experienced civil conflicts and communist purges, which hindered its economy. The country has since recovered and now has the largest economy by GDP in East Africa, having the largest population in the region.
Topic:
Nomenclature. The Greek name Ethiopia, from Aethiops, and Ethiopian, is a compound word, derived from the two Greek words, from etho plus ops, etho, I burn, plus ops, face. According to the Perseus Digital Library, the designation properly translates as burnt face in noun form and red-brown in adjectival form. The historian Herodotus used the appellation to denote those parts of Africa below the Sahara that were then known within the Ecumene inhabitable world. However, the Greek formation may be a folk etymology for the ancient Egyptian term Athtiu Abu, which means robbers of hearts. This Greek name was borrowed into Amharic as Ethiopia. In Greco-Roman epigraphs, Ethiopia was a specific toponym for ancient Nubia. At least as early as c. 850, the name Ethiopia also occurs in many translations of the Old Testament in allusion to Nubia. The ancient Hebrew texts identify Nubia instead as Cush. However, in the New Testament, the Greek term Aethiops does occur, referring to a servant of Candace or Kandake, possibly an inhabitant of Meroe in Nubia. Following the Hellenic and biblical traditions, the Monumentum Adulatinum, a 3rd century inscription belonging to the Aksumite Empire, indicates that Aksum's then ruler governed an area which was flanked to the west by the territory of Ethiopia and Sassu. The Aksumite king Azana would eventually conquer Nubia the following century, and the Aksumites thereafter appropriated the designation, Ethiopians, for their own kingdom. In the Ge'ez version of the Azana inscription, Aethiopoi is equated with the unvocalized Hbstm and Hbeast, Habashat, and denotes for the first time the highland inhabitants of Aksum. This new demonym would subsequently be rendered as Hbs Abash in Sabaic and as Habasha in Arabic. In the 15th century Ge'ez Book of Aksum, the name is ascribed to a legendary individual called Idiopus. He was an extra-biblical son of Cush, son of Ham, said to have founded the city of Aksum, in English, and generally outside of Ethiopia. The country was once historically known as Abyssinia. This toponym was derived from the Latinized form of the ancient Habash. Topic: History. Topic: Prehistory. Several important finds have propelled Ethiopia and the surrounding region to the forefront of paleontology. The oldest hominid discovered to date in Ethiopia is the 4.2 million year old Ardipithecus ramidus, found by Tim D. White in 1994. The most well-known hominid discovery is Australopithecus afarensis, Lucy. Known locally as Dinkanesh, the specimen was found in the Awash Valley of Ethiopia's Afar region in 1974 by Donald Johansen, and is one of the most complete and best-preserved adult Australopithecine fossils ever uncovered. Lucy's taxonomic name refers to the region where the discovery was made. The hominid is estimated to have lived 3.2 million years ago. Ethiopia is also considered one of the earliest sites of the emergence of anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens. The oldest of these local fossil finds, the Omo remains, were excavated in the southwestern Omo Kibish area and have been dated to the Middle Paleolithic, around 200,000 years ago. Additionally, skeletons of Homo sapiens idaltu were found at a site in the Middle Awash Valley. Dated to approximately 160,000 years ago, they may represent an extinct subspecies of Homo sapiens or the immediate ancestors of anatomically modern humans. Homo sapiens fossils excavated at the Jebel Irhoud site in Morocco have since been dated to an earlier period, about 300,000 years ago. According to linguists, the first Afroasiatic-speaking populations arrived in the region during the ensuing Neolithic era from the family's proposed Urheimat, original homeland, in the Nile Valley, or the Near East. Other scholars propose that the Afroasiatic family developed in situ in the Horn, with its speakers subsequently dispersing from there. Craniometric analysis of the Herta Homo sapiens idaltu skull found that the fossil was morphologically distinct from crania belonging to modern Afroasiatic-speaking groups from the Horn of Africa and dynastic Egypt. The latter populations instead possessed Middle Eastern affinities. This suggests that the Afroasiatic-speaking groups settled in the area during a later epoch, having possibly arrived from the Middle East. Antiquity. Around the 8th century BC, a kingdom known as Demount was established in northern Ethiopia and Eritrea. The polity's capital was located at Yeha, in northern Ethiopia. Most modern historians consider this civilization to be a native Ethiopian one, although Sabaean influenced because of the latter's hegemony of the Red Sea. Other scholars regard Demount as the result of a union of Afroasiatic-speaking cultures of the Cushitic and Semitic branches, namely, local Agap peoples and Sabaeans from South Arabia. However, Ge'ez, the ancient Semitic language of Ethiopia, is thought to have developed independently from Sabaean, one of the South Semitic languages. As early as 2000 BC, other Semitic speakers were living in Ethiopia and Eritrea where Ge'ez developed. Sabaean influence is now thought to have been minor, limited to a few localities, and disappearing after a few decades or a century. It may have been a trading or military colony in alliance with the Ethiopian civilization of Demount or some other Proto-Aksumite state. After the fall of Demount during the 4th century BC, the Ethiopian plateau came to be dominated by smaller successor kingdoms. In the 1st century AD, the kingdom of Aksum emerged in what is now northern Ethiopia and Eritrea. According to the medieval Book of Aksum, the kingdom's first capital, Mazabur, was built by Ityopus, son of Cush. Aksum would later at times extend its rule into Yemen on the other side of the Red Sea. The Persian religious figure Mani listed Aksum with Rome, Persia, and China as one of the 4 great powers of his era. During the 3rd century, around 316 AD, Frumentius and his brother Odysseus from Tyre accompanied their uncle on a voyage to Ethiopia. When the vessel stopped at a Red Sea port, the natives killed all the travelers except the 2 brothers, who were taken to the court as slaves. They were given positions of trust by the monarch, and they converted members of the royal court to Christianity. Frumentius became the first bishop of Aksum. A coin dated to 324 shows that Ethiopia was the second country to officially adopt Christianity, after Armenia did so in 301. Although the religion may have been at first confined to court circles, it was the first major power to do so. As the Aksumite kingdom gradually declined, one of the earliest local Muslim states, the Makhzumi Sultanate, was established in the Shiwa region. The polity was governed by the Makhzumi dynasty, which reigned over the province until it was deposed around 1280 by the Walashma dynasty. During Muhammad's era. The first interaction that the Islamic prophet Muhammad had with Ethiopia was during the reign of Ashama ibn Abjar, who was at the time the emperor of Aksum and gave refuge to several Muslims in the kingdom of Aksum in 614 AD. According to other authors, Ashama may have been the same person as King Arma, or his father or son. Tatis Tamrat records that the inhabitants of Waikuero, where the ruler is known as Ashamat al-Nagashi, claim that his tomb is located in their village. Muhammad's second interaction with Ethiopia was during the expedition of Zayd ibn Haritha, when he sent Amr bin Umayyah al-Damri to the king of Ethiopia, then Abyssinia. Middle Ages. The Zagwe dynasty ruled many parts of present-day Ethiopia and Eritrea between the early 12th and late 13th century. The name of the dynasty is derived from the Cushitic-speaking Aga of northern Ethiopia. From 1270 AD until the Zamin Mesafint Age of Princes, the Solomonic dynasty governed the Ethiopian Empire. In the early 15th century, Ethiopia sought to make diplomatic contact with European kingdoms for the first time since the Aksumite era. A letter from Henry IV of England to the Emperor of Abyssinia survives. In 1428, Yeshak I sent 2 emissaries to Alfonso V of Aragon, who sent return emissaries. They failed to complete the return trip. The first continuous relations with a European country began in 1508 with Portugal under Dawi II, Lebna Dengel, who had just inherited the throne from his father. This proved to be an important development, for when the empire was subjected to the attacks of the Adal Sultanate's general and imam, Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi, called Gran the Left-Handed, Portugal assisted the Ethiopian emperor by sending weapons and 400 men, who helped his son Gelawdwis defeat Ahmad and re-establish his rule. This Abyssinian Adal War was also one of the first proxy wars in the region, as the Ottoman Empire and Portugal took sides in the conflict. When Emperor Susannios I converted to Roman Catholicism in 1624, years of revolt and civil unrest followed, resulting in thousands of deaths. The Jesuit missionaries had offended the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo faith of the local Ethiopians. In June 1632, Fasilides, Susannios' son, declared the state religion again to be the Ethiopian Orthodoxy. He expelled the Jesuit missionaries and other Europeans. Asa Sultanate. The Sultanate of Asa, or Afar Sultanate, succeeded the earlier Imamate of Asa. The latter polity had come into existence in 1577 when Muhammad Jasa moved his capital from Harar to Asa, Asaida, with the split of the Adal Sultanate into the Sultanate of Asa and the Sultanate of Harar. At some point after 1672, the Sultanate of Asa declined and temporarily came to an end in conjunction with Imam Umar din bin Adam's recorded ascension to the throne. The Sultanate was subsequently re-established by Qaddafi around the year 1734. It was thereafter ruled by his Mudaito dynasty. The primary symbol of the Sultan was a silver baton, which was considered to have magical properties. Zamin Mesafint. Between 1755 and 1855, Ethiopia experienced a period of isolation referred to as the Zamin Mesafint, or Age of Princes. The emperors became figureheads, controlled by warlords like Ras Michael Sehul of Tigray, Ras Wald Selassie of Tigray, and by the Yeju Oromo dynasty, such as Ras Gugza of Yeju, which later led to 17th century Oromo rule of Gondar, changing the language of the court from Amharic to Afan Oromo. Ethiopian isolationism ended following a British mission that concluded an alliance between the two nations, but it was not until 1855 that Ethiopia was completely united and the power in the emperor restored, beginning with the reign of Tewodros II. Upon his ascent, he began modernizing Ethiopia and re-centralizing power in the emperor. Ethiopia began to take part in world affairs once again, but Tewodros suffered several rebellions inside his empire. Northern Oromo militias, Tigrayan rebellion, and the constant incursion of Ottoman Empire and Egyptian forces near the Red Sea brought the weakening and the final downfall of Tewodros II. He killed himself in 1868 during his last battle with the British expedition to Abyssinia. Emperor Tewodros II was born in Begumder from a nobleman of Kwara, where the Kwara dialect of Agal language is spoken. After Tewodros' death, Tekel Georgis II was proclaimed emperor. He was defeated in the battles of Zulawu, the 21st of June 1871, and Adua, the 11th of July 1871. Kasai was subsequently declared Johan's IV on the 21st of January 1872. In 1875 and 1876, Turkish-Egyptian forces, accompanied by many European and American advisors, twice invaded Abyssinia but were initially defeated, once at the Battle of Gundit losing 800 men, and then in the second invasion, decisively defeated by Emperor Johannes IV at the Battle of Gura on the 7th of March 1875, where the invading forces lost at least 3,000 men by death or captured. From 1885 to 1889, Ethiopia joined the Mahdist War allied to Britain, Turkey, and Egypt against the Sudanese Mahdist state. On the 10th of March 1889, Johan's IV was killed by the Sudanese Khalifa Abdullah's army whilst leading his army in the Battle of Galabat, also called Battle of Matema. From Menelik II to ADWA 1889 to 1913. Ethiopia in its roughly current form began under the reign of Menelik II, who was emperor from 1889 until his death in 1913. From his base in the central province of Shewa, Menelik set out to annex territories to the south, east and west, areas inhabited by the Oromo, Sidama, Grage, Weleda, and other groups. He did this with the help of Ras Gobana Dash's Shiwan Oromo militia, which occupied lands that had not been held since Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi's war, as well as other areas that had never been under Ethiopian sovereignty. Menelik's campaign against Oromos outside his army was largely in retaliation for centuries of Oromo expansionism and the Zemene Mesafint, a period during which a succession of Oromo feudal rulers dominated the highlanders. Chief among these was the Yeju dynasty, which included Aligas of Yeju and his brother Ali I of Yeju. Ali I founded the town of Debre Tabor in the Amhara region, which became the dynasty's capital. Menelik was born from King Hailemeleko of Shewa and his mother Ejegayulema Adiyamo, who was a servant in the royal household. He had been born at Angalala in an Oromo area and had lived his first 12 years with Shiwan Oromos with whom he thus had much in common. During his reign, Menelik II made advances in road construction, electricity and education, the development of a central taxation system, and the foundation and building of the city of Addis Ababa, which became capital of Shewa province in 1881. After he ascended to the throne in 1889, it was renamed as Addis Ababa, the new capital of Abyssinia. Menelik had signed the Treaty of Wikale with Italy in May 1889, in which Italy would recognize Ethiopia's sovereignty so long as Italy could control an area north of Ethiopia, part of modern Eritrea. In return, Italy was to provide Menelik with weapons and support him as emperor. The Italians used the time between the signing of the treaty and its ratification by the Italian government to expand their territorial claims. This conflict erupted in the Battle of Adwa on 1 March 1896, in which Italy's colonial forces were defeated by the Ethiopians. About a third of the population died in the Great Ethiopian Famine 1888 to 1892. Topic: Haile Selassie I era 1916 to 1974 and Italian Ethiopia. The early 20th century was marked by the reign of Emperor Haile Selassie Ras Tafari. Haile Selassie I was born to parents from three of Ethiopia's Afroasiatic-speaking populations, the Oromo and Amhara, the country's two largest ethnic groups, as well as the Grage. He came to power after Iyasu V was deposed, and undertook a nationwide modernization campaign from 1916, when he was made a Ras and regent Indirace for the Empress Regnant Zaditu, and became the de facto ruler of the Ethiopian Empire. Following Zaditu's death, on 2 November 1930, he succeeded her as emperor. The independence of Ethiopia was interrupted by the Second Italo-Ethiopian War, beginning when it was invaded by Fascist Italy in early October 1935, and Italian occupation of the country 1936 to 1941. During this time, Haile Selassie appealed to the League of Nations in 1935, delivering an address that made him a worldwide figure, and the 1935 Time Man of the Year. As the majority of the Ethiopian population lived in rural towns, Italy faced continued resistance and ambushes in urban centers throughout its occupation. Haile Selassie fled into exile in Fairfield House, Bath, and Mussolini was able to proclaim the Empire of Ethiopia and the assumption of the imperial title by the Italian king Vittorio Emanuele III, recognized by the countries belonging to the International Organization of the League of Nations. In 1937, the Italian massacre of Yekatit 12, in which many Ethiopians were imprisoned and massacred, took place. This was because of a failed attempt to assassinate Rodolfo Graziani, the viceroy of Italian East Africa. Following the entry of Italy into World War II, British Empire forces, together with the Arbegnach lit. Patriots, referring to armed resistance soldiers, restored sovereignty of Ethiopia in the course of the East African Campaign in 1941. An Italian guerrilla campaign continued until 1943. This was followed by British recognition of Ethiopia's full sovereignty, i.e. without any special British privileges, with the signing of the Anglo-Ethiopian Agreement in December 1944. On the 26th of August 1942, Haile Selassie issued a proclamation that removed Ethiopia's legal basis for slavery. Ethiopia had between 2 and 4 million slaves in the early 20th century out of a total population of about 11 million. In 1952, Haile Selassie orchestrated the federation with Eritrea. He dissolved this in 1962 and illegally annexed Eritrea against the UN Federation Agreement, which resisted and finally won its war of independence. Haile Selassie played a leading role in the formation of the Organization of African Unity (OAU) in 1963. Opinion within Ethiopia turned against Haile Selassie owing to the worldwide oil crisis of 1973. This oil crisis caused a sharp increase in gasoline prices starting on the 13th of February 1974, food shortages, uncertainty regarding the succession, border wars, and discontent in the middle class created through modernization. The high gasoline prices motivated the taxi drivers and teachers to go on strike on the 18th of February 1974, and students and workers in Addis Ababa began demonstrating against the government on the 20th of February 1974. The feudal oligarchical cabinet of Akilo Habte Wald was toppled, and a new government was formed with Endulkachu Makanan serving as prime minister. Topic: Communist era 1974 to 1991. Haile Selassie's reign came to an end on the 12th of September 1974 when he was deposed by the Derg, a Soviet-backed Marxist-Leninist military dictatorship led by Mengistu Haile Mariam. The new Provisional Military Administrative Council established a one-party communist state in March 1975. The ensuing regime suffered several coups, uprisings, wide-scale drought, and a huge refugee problem. In 1977, Somalia, which had been receiving assistance and arms from the USSR, invaded Ethiopia in the Ogaden War, capturing part of the Ogaden region. Ethiopia recovered it after it began receiving massive military aid from the USSR, Cuba, South Yemen, East Germany, and North Korea. This included around 15,000 Cuban combat troops. Between 1977-78, up to 500,000 were killed as a result of the Red Terror, from forced deportations, or from the use of hunger as a weapon under Mengistu's rule. The Red Terror was carried out in response to what the Derg termed as the White Terror, a chain of violent events, assassinations, and killings carried out by what it called petty bourgeois reactionaries, who desired a reversal of the 1974 revolution. The 1983-85 famine in Ethiopia affected around 8 million people, resulting in 1 million dead. Insurrections against communist rule sprang up particularly in the northern regions of Eritrea and Tigray. In 1989, the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front (TPLF) merged with other ethnically based opposition movements to form the coalition known as the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front (EPRDF). Concurrently, the Soviet Union began to retreat from building world communism under Mikhail Gorbachev's glasnost and perestroika policies, marking a dramatic reduction in aid to Ethiopia from socialist bloc countries. This resulted in more economic hardship and the collapse of the military in the face of determined onslaughts by guerrilla forces in the north. The collapse of Marxism-Leninism in general, and in Eastern Europe during the revolutions of 1989, coincided with the Soviet Union stopping aid to Ethiopia altogether in 1990. The strategic outlook for Mengistu quickly deteriorated. In May 1991, EPRDF forces advanced on Addis Ababa and the Soviet Union did not intervene to save the government side. Mengistu fled the country and was granted asylum in Zimbabwe, where he still resides. In 2006, after a trial that lasted 12 years, Ethiopia's Federal High Court in Addis Ababa found Mengistu guilty of genocide in absentia. Numerous other top leaders of his regime were also found guilty of war crimes. Mengistu and others who had fled the country were tried and sentenced in absentia. Numerous former officials received the death sentence and tens of others spent the next 20 years in jail, before being pardoned from life sentences. In July 1991, EPRDF convened a national conference to establish the Transitional Government of Ethiopia, composed of an 87-member Council of Representatives and guided by a national charter that functioned as a transitional constitution. In June 1992, the Oromo Liberation Front withdrew from the government. In March 1993, members of the Southern Ethiopia People's Democratic Coalition also left the government. In 1994, a new constitution was written that established a parliamentary republic with a bicameral legislature and a judicial system. Topic: Federal Democratic Republic 1991 present. The first multi-party election took place in May 1995, which was won by the EPRDF. The president of the transitional government, EPRDF leader Meles Zenawi, became prime minister, and Negasso Gidada was elected president. In May 1998, a border dispute with Eritrea led to the Eritrean-Ethiopian War, which lasted until June 2000 and cost both countries an estimated $1 million a day. This had a negative effect on Ethiopia's economy, but strengthened the ruling coalition. Ethiopia's third multi-party election on the 15th of May 2005 was highly disputed, with some opposition groups claiming fraud. Though the Carter Center approved the pre-election conditions, it expressed its dissatisfaction with post-election events. European Union election observers cited state support for the EPRDF campaign, as well as irregularities in ballot counting and results publishing. The opposition parties gained more than 200 parliamentary seats, compared with just 12 in the 2000 elections. While most of the opposition representatives joined the parliament, some leaders of the CUD party who refused to take up their parliamentary seats were accused of inciting the post-election violence and were imprisoned. Amnesty International considered them prisoners of conscience, and they were subsequently released. A coalition of opposition parties and some individuals was established in 2009 to oust the regime of the EPRDF in legislative elections of 2010. Meles Party, which has been in power since 1991, published its 65-page manifesto in Addis Ababa on the 10th of October 2009. The opposition won most votes in Addis Ababa, but the EPRDF halted counting of votes for several days. After it ensued, it claimed the election, amidst charges of fraud and intimidation. Some of the 8 member parties of the MEDREC, Forum for Democratic Dialogue, include the Oromo Federalist Congress, organized by the Oromo Federalist Democratic Movement, and the Oromo People's Congress, the Arena Tigray, organized by former members of the ruling party TPLF, the Unity for Democracy and Justice, UDJ, whose leader is imprisoned, and the Coalition of Somali Democratic Forces. In mid-2011, 2 consecutively missed rainy seasons precipitated the worst drought in East Africa seen in 60 years. Full recovery from the drought's effects did not occur until 2012, with long-term strategies by the national government in conjunction with development agencies believed to offer the most sustainable results. Meles died on the 20th of August 2012 in Brussels, where he was being treated for an unspecified illness. Deputy Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn was appointed as a new Prime Minister until the 2015 elections, and remained so afterwards with his party in control of every parliamentary seat. Protests broke out across the country on the 5th of August 2016 and dozens of protesters were subsequently shot and killed by police. The protesters demanded an end to human rights abuses, the release of political prisoners, a fairer redistribution of the wealth generated by over a decade of economic growth, and a return of Wolkate district to the Amhara region. The events were the most violent crackdown against protesters in sub-Saharan Africa since the Ethiopian regime killed at least 75 people during protests in the Oromia region in November and December 2015. Following these protests, Ethiopia declared a state of emergency on the 6th of October 2016. The state of emergency was lifted in August 2017. Up to 400,000 have been displaced by the Oromo-Somali clashes in 2017. More than 1.2 million people have been displaced by inter-ethnic violence in 2018. On 16 and the 17th of September 2018 in the minorities protest that took place in Oromo near the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa, 23 people were killed. On February 16, 2018, the government of Ethiopia declared a 6-month nationwide state of emergency following the resignation of Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn. Hailemariam is the first ruler in modern Ethiopian history to step down. Previous leaders have died in office or been overthrown. He said he wanted to clear the way for reforms. His successor, Abiy Ahmed, made a historic visit to Eritrea in 2018, ending the state of conflict between the countries. Politics. The politics of Ethiopia takes place in a framework of a federal parliamentary republic, wherein the Prime Minister is the head of government. The President is the head of state, left with only ceremonial powers. Executive power is exercised by the government. Federal legislative power is vested in both the government and the two chambers of parliament. On the basis of Article 78 of the 1994 Ethiopian Constitution, the judiciary is completely independent of the executive and the legislature. The current realities of this provision are questioned in a report prepared by Freedom House. According to the Democracy Index published by the United Kingdom-based Economist Intelligence Unit in late 2010, Ethiopia is an authoritarian regime, ranking as the 118th most democratic out of 167 countries. Ethiopia has dropped 12 places on the list since 2006, and the latest report attributes the drop to the government's crackdown on opposition activities, media and civil society before the 2010 parliamentary election, which the report argues has made Ethiopia a de facto one-party state. In July 2015, during a trip that then U.S. President Barack Obama took to Ethiopia, he highlighted the role of the country in the fight against Islamic terrorism. Obama was the first sitting United States president to visit Ethiopia. Topic: Governance. The election of Ethiopia's 547-member Constituent Assembly was held in June 1994. This assembly adopted the Constitution of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia in December 1994. The elections for Ethiopia's first popularly chosen national parliament and regional legislatures were held in May and June 1995. Most opposition parties chose to boycott these elections. There was a landslide victory for the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front (EPRDF). International and non-governmental observers concluded that opposition parties would have been able to participate had they chosen to do so. The current government of Ethiopia was installed in August 1995. The first president was Negasso Gidada. The EPRDF-led government of Prime Minister Meles Zenawi promoted a policy of ethnic federalism, devolving significant powers to regional, ethnically based authorities. Ethiopia today has 9 semi-autonomous administrative regions that have the power to raise and spend their own revenues. Under the present government, some fundamental freedoms, including freedom of the press, are circumscribed, citizens have little access to media other than the state-owned networks, and most private newspapers struggle to remain open and suffer periodic harassment from the government. At least 18 journalists who had written articles critical of the government were arrested following the 2005 elections on genocide and treason charges. The government uses press laws governing libel to intimidate journalists who are critical of its policies. Meles' government was elected in 2000 in Ethiopia's first ever multi-party elections. However, the results were heavily criticized by international observers and denounced by the opposition as fraudulent. The EPRDF also won the 2005 election, returning Meles to power. Although the opposition vote increased in the election, both the opposition and observers from the European Union and elsewhere stated that the vote did not meet international standards for fair and free elections. Ethiopian police are said to have massacred 193 protesters, mostly in the capital Addis Ababa, in the violence following the May 2005 elections in the Ethiopian police massacre. The government initiated a crackdown in the provinces as well. In Oromia state, the authorities used concerns over insurgency and terrorism to use torture, imprisonment, and other repressive methods to silence critics following the election, particularly people sympathetic to the registered opposition party Oromo National Congress (ONC). The government has been engaged in a conflict with rebels in the Ogaden region since 2007. The biggest opposition party in 2005 was the Coalition for Unity and Democracy (CUD). After various internal divisions, most of the CUD party leaders have established the new Unity for Democracy and Justice party led by Judge Burtukan Mideksa. A member of the country's Oromo ethnic group, Ms. Burtukan Mideksa is the first woman to lead a political party in Ethiopia. In 2008, the top 5 opposition parties were the Unity for Democracy and Justice led by Judge Burtukan Mideksa, United Ethiopian Democratic Forces led by Dr. Bayin Petros, Oromo Federalist Democratic Movement led by Dr. Bulcha Demeksa, Oromo People's Congress led by Dr. Merera Gudina, and United Ethiopian Democratic Party Medan Party led by Lidetu Ayalu. After the 2015 elections, Ethiopia lost its single remaining opposition MP. There are now no opposition MPs in the Ethiopian parliament. Topic: Human rights. Recent human rights violations include the killing of 100 peaceful protesters by direct government gunfire in the Oromo and Amhara regions in 2016. The UN has called for UN observers on the ground in Ethiopia to investigate this incident, however the EPRDF-dominated Ethiopian government has refused this call. The protesters are protesting land grabs and lack of basic human rights such as the freedom to elect their representatives. The TPLF-dominated EPRDF won 100% in an election marked by fraud, which has resulted in Ethiopian civilians protesting on scale unseen in prior post-election protests. Merera Gudina, leader of the Oromo People's Congress, said the East African country was at a crossroads. People are demanding their rights. He said, "People are fed up with what the regime has been doing for a quarter of a century. They're protesting against land grabs, reparations, stolen elections, the rising cost of living, many things." Quote, "If the government continue to repress while the people are demanding their rights in the millions, that civil war is one of the likely scenarios," Merera said in an interview with Reuters. According to surveys in 2003 by the National Committee on Traditional Practices in Ethiopia, marriage by abduction accounts for 69% of the nation's marriages, with around 80% in the largest region, Oromia, and as high as 92% in the southern nationalities, and peoples region. Homosexual acts are illegal in Ethiopia. Among the Omadic Karo-speaking and Hamer peoples in southern Ethiopia, adults and children with physical abnormalities are considered to be minga, ritually impure. The latter are believed to exert an evil influence upon others. Disabled infants have traditionally been murdered without a proper burial. The Karo officially banned the practice in July 2012. In 2013, the Oakland Institute released a report accusing the Ethiopian government of forcing the relocation of hundreds of thousands of indigenous people from their lands. In the Gambela region, the report describes the Ethiopian government's plans to move over 1.5 million people by the end of 2013, in order to allow foreign investors to develop the land for large-scale industrial agriculture. According to several reports by the organization, those who refused were the subject of a variety of intimidation techniques, including physical and sexual abuse, which sometimes led to deaths. A similar 2012 report by Human Rights Watch also describes the Ethiopian government's 2010-2011 villagization program in Gambela, with plans to carry out similar resettlements in other regions. The Ethiopian government has denied the accusations of land grabbing and instead pointed to the positive trajectory of the country's economy as evidence of the development program's benefits. Military. Administrative divisions. Before 1996, Ethiopia was divided into 13 provinces, many derived from historical regions. The nation now has a tiered governmental system consisting of a federal government overseeing ethnically based regional states, zones, districts, woreda, and kebeles, neighborhoods. Since 1996, Ethiopia has been divided into 9 ethnically based and politically autonomous regional states, Kililak, singular Kilil, and 2 chartered cities, Astadadar Akababiwak, singular Astadadar Akababi, the latter being Addis Ababa and Dire Dawa. The Kililak are subdivided into 68 zones, and then further into 550 woredas and several special woredas. The Constitution assigns extensive power to regional states, which can establish their own government and democracy as long as it is in line with the federal government's constitution. Each region has at its apex a regional council where members are directly elected to represent the districts, and the council has legislative and executive power to direct internal affairs of the regions. Article 39 of the Ethiopian Constitution further gives every regional state the right to secede from Ethiopia. There is debate, however, as to how much of the power guaranteed in the Constitution is actually given to the states. The councils implement their mandate through an executive committee and regional sectoral bureaus. Such elaborate structure of council, executive, and sectoral public institutions is replicated to the next level, woreda. Geography. At 1,126,829 square kilometers, 435,071 square miles, Ethiopia is the world's 27th largest country, comparable in size to Bolivia. It lies between the 3rd parallel north and the 15th parallel north and longitudes 33rd meridian east and 48th meridian east. The major portion of Ethiopia lies on the Horn of Africa, which is the easternmost part of the African landmass. Bordering Ethiopia are Sudan,